Hi readers! Hi readers! Welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads. I can't even pronounce my own title. Anywho, welcome to my week in a book haul. I actually bought these books the week before last, but last week I had a different video that I wanted to do. So, there's one exception on this book haul that I'll tell you about first. It's one that I bought because it is actually for school. Allegedly, they'll have bits of this book by on PDF in Canvas, but I wanted a copy because it's directly related to my interest, which is women in war. And that book is Charlotte Delbo's Convoy to Auschwitz, Women of the French Resistance. So I'm really interested in women in war and in the resistance. In this book, on January 24th, 1943, 230 women political prisoners, most of whom had worked for the French resistance, were deported to Auschwitz. Author Charlotte Delbo was one of the 49 who survived. This is now available in English for the first time. I say now as of 1997. So, this is Delbo's testament to those who formed the convoy to hell that was Auschwitz. The prisoners came from all regions of France and represented a wide range of social backgrounds and political views. With a gripping simplicity and poignancy, Delbo recounts the unique life history of each woman, from her childhood to her involvement in the resistance, from her arrest to her horrifying experience in the concentration camp. Collectively, these stories are a powerful and stirring reminder of the atrocities perpetrated by the Nazis. So, I ordered this because I want to use it for one of my classes later down the road. And it is required reading, at least a portion of it, but it's a book I wanted to own. So, got a little lipstick stuff going on. Friday, the 12th of December, was our company's Christmas lunch. And every year we get a gift card. And for a long time, I was unable to figure out how to redeem these gift cards because it was nearly impossible online. Finally, I reached out to a colleague and she says she always does it in person and tries to spend just a little bit over the gift card. I spent a good bit over the gift card, but not double the amount. And so, again, once I found out, I started going to Barnes & Noble and gifting myself some books. This time, they're all World War II related. I have been looking forward to Friday. Kind of have a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation moment where I'm like, one of these days, they're not going to give us the gift card I've been expecting. We'll get like a Jelly of the Month club or something. But this time we did. And so, I went in with a list, and I only bought one book that wasn't on the list, and that was recommended to me by a bookseller. I'll tell you about that when I get to it. This is quite the haul. First up, one of the classes that I have to take in the future is the lived experience. So I wanted to collect a lot of memoirs and, about the lived experience. So I started with Audie Murphy's To Hell and Back, the classic memoir of World War II by America's most dedicated soldier. Originally published in 1949, To Hell and Back was an enormous bestseller and later became a major motion picture starring Audie Murphy as himself. 3/4 of a century later, this classic wartime memoir is still as gripping as ever. Rejected from both the Marines and the paratroopers because he was too small, Murphy was so desperate to see action and determined to serve his country. Eventually, he found a home with the infantry and fought through campaigns in Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany. I shouldn't have put on lipstick before this. It's getting on my nerves. Although still under 21 years old on VE Day, he was credited with having killed, captured, or wounded 240 Germans. He emerged from the war as America's most decorated soldier, having received 21 medals, including our highest military decoration, the Congressional Medal of Honor. I look forward to reading this at some point in the future, and if it's available, I may listen to it. I'll tell you more about listening to a book later. The problem with me with audiobooks is I don't retain a lot, and I zone out, like to the point that because I listen to it when I'm driving, I zone out and I'll get to thinking about something and I'll realize I've missed 2 whole minutes. Anywho, next up, again, my area of interest, The Girl Bandits of the Warsaw Ghetto, the true story of 5 courageous young women who sparked an uprising, by Elizabeth R. Hyman. I need to slow down. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising is one of the most storied events of the Holocaust, yet previous accounts have almost entirely focused on its male participants. In The Girl Bandits of the Warsaw Ghetto, Holocaust historian Elizabeth Hyman introduces 5 young, courageous Polish Jewish women, known as the Girls by the leadership of the resistance and bandits by their Nazi oppressors, who were central to the Jewish resistance as fighters, commanders, couriers, and smugglers. They included Zivia Lubetkin, the most senior female member of the Jewish fighting organization, command staff in Warsaw, and a reluctant legend in her own time, who is immortalized by her code name, Selena. Vladka Mead, who smuggled dynamite into and illegal literature out of the Warsaw Ghetto in preparation for the uprising. Dr. Adina Inka Blady-Schweiger, a young medical student who became a reluctant angel of mercy. Tima Schneiderman, a tall, beautiful, and fearless young woman who volunteered for smuggling and rescue missions across Nazi-occupied Eastern Europe. Tosia Altman, a heroic courier with a poetic soul who helped bring arms into the Warsaw Ghetto, fought in the uprising, and ferried communiques to the outside world. Interspersed with the stories of other Jewish women who resisted, The Girl Bandits of the Warsaw Ghetto rescues these women from the shadows of time, bringing to light their resilience, bravery, and cunning in the face of unspeakable hardship, inspiring stories of courage, daring, and resistance that must never be forgotten. You know, if you follow along, I may have mentioned this in the past. I don't do well with TV watching since 2020. Occasionally on Friday nights I can watch something, but when it comes to like a series, even a limited series, my attention span just isn't there. I prefer to read. However, I have been watching intermittently The Pacific on HBO, and it was based on 2 novels, one of which I'll get to later, but Helmet for My Pillow, From Paris Island to the Pacific by Robert Leckie is one of the other books. He's a character in this novel. This is a memoir, and it is one of the most riveting first-person accounts ever to come out of World War II. Robert Leckie enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps in January 1942, shortly after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. In Helmet for My Pillow, we follow his odyssey from basic training on Paris Island, South Carolina, all the way to the raging battles in the Pacific, where some of the war's fiercest fighting took place. Recounting his service with the 1st Marine Division and the brutal action on Guadalcanal, New Britain, and Peleliu, Leckie spares no detail of the horrors and sacrifices of war, painting an unvarnished portrait of how real warriors are made, fight, and often die in the defense of their country. From the Live for Today rowdiness of the Marines on leave to the terrors of the jungle warfare against an enemy determined to fight to the last man. Leckie describes what war is really like when victory can only be measured inch by bloody inch. Woven throughout are Leckie's hard-won, eloquent, and thoroughly unsentimental meditations on the meaning of war and why we fight. Why we fight is actually one of the theme of the first module of my first class, that, at least according to last year's syllabus. Unparalleled in its immediacy and accuracy, Helmet for My Pillow will leave no reader untouched. This is a book that brings you as close to the mud, the blood, and the experience of war as it is safe to come. This is another one that I may listen to. It doesn't have a lot of pictures in here. But again, I'm looking forward to reading this because lived experience, why we fight, and just really interested in it, especially after seeing two stories combined in the Pacific on HBO. Next up, another book that was on my list, and again, I want to use it in my studies because it is about women in war, and this is Spitfires, the American Women Who Flew in the Face of Danger During World War II by Becky Aikman. So earlier this year, I've read Code Girls, and I read The Women with Silver Wings. The Women with Silver Wings is primarily about female pilots who served in the U.S. during the war. In this one, they were crop dusters and debutantes, college girls and performers in flying circuses, all of them trained as pilots. Because they were women, they were denied the opportunity to fly for their country when the U.S. entered the Second World War. But Great Britain, desperately fighting for survival, would let anyone, even Americans, even women, transport warplanes. Thus, 25 daring young aviators bolted for England in 1942, becoming the first American women to command military aircraft. I thought I had a nonfiction or a fiction book about some that's on this theme around, but I think I actually took it upstairs. In a faraway land, these Spitfires lived like women decades ahead of their time. Risking their lives in one of the deadliest jobs of the war, they ferried new, barely tested fighters and bombers to air bases and returned shot-up wrecks for repair, never knowing what might go wrong until they were high in the sky. Many ferry pilots died in crashes or made spectacular saves. It was exciting, often terrifying work. The pilots broke new ground off-duty as well, shocking their hosts with thoroughly modern behavior, like a true Spitfire. With cinematic sweep, Becky Aikman follows the stories of 9 of the women who served, drawing on unpublished diaries, letters, and records, along with her own interviews to bring these forgotten heroines fully to life. So, really look forward to this. I, again, want to use this in the course of my studies with an emphasis on women in war. The next book that I got is one that was recommended to me by the bookseller. He's recommended me several books. One, I have made a printout of the information that I'm going to order after payday, which again, not required for classes, but an interesting lived experience book. But this one is Neptune's Inferno, the U.S. Navy at Guadalcanal. So, the book actually says what I'm about to say. The Battle of Guadalcanal has long been heralded as a Marine victory. Now, with his powerful portrait of the Navy's sacrifice, James D. Hornfisher tells for the first time the full story of the men who fought in destroyers, cruisers, and battleships in the narrow, deadly waters of Iron Bottom Sound. Here, in stunning cinematic detail, are the 7 major naval actions that began in August 1942, a time when the war seemed unwinnable and America fought on a shoestring, with the outcome always in doubt. Working from new interviews with survivors, unpublished eyewitness accounts, and newly available documents, Hornfisher paints a vivid picture of the officers and enlisted men who opposed the Japanese in America's hour of need. The first major work on this subject in almost 2 decades, Neptune's Inferno does what all great battle narratives do. It tells the gripping human stories behind the momentous events and critical decisions that altered the course of history and shaped so many lives. This was published in, copyright 2011, this edition is 2012, so over 10 years ago, and it just reminds me, because he's talking about new interviews with survivors, we're not going to have survivors for much longer because of just how long it's been since World War II. So this is really interesting. Looking forward to reading that. The next one was on my list, again, not required for classes, but recently I went to see the movie Nuremberg and bought a book because of that, and that's about the German leaders and people who were put on trial for the atrocities committed in Germany. In Judgment of Tokyo, this is World War II on trial and the making of modern Asia. This is the Japanese trials. So after World War II, the victorious Allies put Japan's wartime leaders on trial for the aggression at Pearl Harbor and atrocities from China to the Philippines, the largely overlooked Asian counterpart to Nuremberg. Yet, as this magisterial book reveals, the Tokyo trial brought not unanimity, but dissents and divisions that provoke international discord between China, Japan, and Korea to this day. What day is that? Let's look at the copyright page. Let's try to look at the copyright page. Copyright 2023 by Gary J. Bass. This is one of New York Times' notable books of the year. A landmark history researched and written over the span of a decade, Judgment at Tokyo is a beautifully written story of wartime action, dramatic courtroom battles, and the epic formative years of the Asian post-war era. So this is actually really interesting to me. I have to confess that until I started doing some reading for this class that I'm going to start taking in January, I did not know anything about Japan and their involvement in World War II prior to December 7th, 1941. So, I've already learned things that I didn't know, and I'll talk about that, if I haven't already, in a short video at some point. My shorts and my YouTube channel is going to change focus because I will largely not be reading for pleasure, solely for pleasure. I will also be reading to learn over the next 2 years, hopefully. And, but I am finding pleasure in some of these books. Here's one. This one I bought is not part of the book haul. It is With the Old Breed. And again, this is a required book for the first class that I'm going to take. This is by E.B. Sledge. This is the other book that is the other story that's told in the Pacific. I have never heard of this book, and I am listening to it on Audible, and it's fascinating. It is so well written. The person who does the intro, who I do not really like, I won't say his name here, but he says that, you know, Sledge is not a writer. I put air quotes around that because he is a great storyteller. I'm in the 4th chapter listening to it. I've been listening to it for less than a week. I love it. Love it. I will read the sections of this that are required for the class because it's not the entire book, but I'm definitely going to finish listening to this because I'm loving it. So, I found out recently, this year, Sledge's son, W. Henry Sledge, also wrote a book called The Old Breed, The Complete Story Revealed, a father, a son, and how World War II and the Pacific shaped their lives. Tom Hanks blurbs this. I wonder if this is available on audio as well, but I probably will read this one. The Old Breed, The Complete Story Revealed, not only delves into the universal post-war struggles of a World War II veteran, but it also examines how Eugene Sledge, a former U.S. Marine, not a museum, sorry, I don't know where I chose to deal with them. As his son, Henry Sledge, is able to provide a unique insight into how Eugene's war experience informed the choices he made later as a husband and a father. It is a compelling and moving account of a veteran overcoming his struggles to ultimately lead to a cheerful, productive, and successful life. I definitely look forward to this book. I saw some of Henry Sledge's talk at the recent National World War II conference down at the World War II Museum. And I guess I wasn't paying attention enough because I did not realize he'd published a book. And I didn't at the time really understand who his father was. I have a little bit better understanding now, so I'll probably go back and rewatch that talk that he gave along with another individual. If I remember correctly, I was distracted by the other individual because he was an older man. He was wearing khakis, tennis shoes, a striped shirt, and a like blazer, a dark blue blazer, and I was like, I can't wait until I can just dress for comfort and not give a fuck how I look. So, anywho, no shade to that man, but it distracted me. I was distracted with admiration. Anywho, I'm definitely going to read this one after some time. Definitely some time. Because I want to see the other side of the story of between father and son. Very intrigued about that. So, large book haul. I'm not sure how many I'm going to get to because I've got to get through this textbook. And and the textbook and taking notes on that is rather dense reading. It's good and I'm learning things. It's just a lot slower than I'm used to reading. Anyway, I did get one other book in this book haul. It is a fiction book. It is World War II related, and I don't have it here because it's actually out on my back porch. It is a pleasure read, and it's YA, so it's kind of fun, but I just don't have it here with me. Anywho, if you've made it with me this far, as always, thank you for sticking with me on my journey, and happy reading.